The Mafia Boss saw the Black Maid comfort a shaken server and realized why she stayed after hours. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Hair from Emily's cheek with the tenderness of someone who understood too well what it meant to hold yourself together in public only to unravel when no one was watching. You're not losing anything tonight, Naomi whispered. You hear me? Not on my watch. Always does. Behind the glass, something tightened in Vincent's chest. He had built his world on efficiency and order, on expectations that his staff carried themselves with professionalism at all times. He believed in precision, not sentiment. But watching Naomi kneel on the cold tile floor, giving more care in 5 minutes than some people offered in a lifetime, unsettled him in a way he had not prepared for. When Naomi finally rose to her feet and helped Emily stand, she guided the young woman toward the employee lockers. Emily's steps wobbled, but her trust in Naomi held her steady. Naomi opened a locker, retrieved Emily's coat, and draped it around her shoulders with the tenderness of an older sister. Sit for a moment, Naomi said softly. Drink some water. I will call you a ride home. A Vincent Marino's silence settled around her like a slow descending curtain. He stood only a few steps away, close enough that she could see the faint crease between his brows, the kind that appeared when something did not align with the rules he lived by. The kitchen lights buzzed softly above them, and the stainless steel counters reflected their silhouettes, two figures from opposite worlds caught in an unexpected moment of truth. Naomi kept her hands gently folded in front of her apron, steady but unsure of what would come next. She had answered his question honestly, maybe too honestly, and now waited for the consequences. Vincent's gaze lingered on her face as if searching for something he had missed before, something hidden beneath her quiet demeanor and worn uniform. In his expression made her pause. It was not pity, nor obligation. It was something closer to responsibility, a rare kind that acknowledged her as a human being rather than a staff member. All right, she said softly. If that is acceptable. Vincent gave a small nod, one that felt more like respect than permission. For a moment, neither of them moved. The kitchen seemed to hold its breath, the hum of the refrigeration units becoming the only sound. Naomi finally broke the quiet with a gentle, I should check on Emily before I leave. Go ahead, Vincent said. Cared. Naomi brushed her arm with a comforting hand. There is always someone who cares, she said softly. Sometimes you just cannot see them until the world slows down. As Emily stepped out to wait for the ride Naomi had called, Naomi turned back into the kitchen, expecting the space to be empty. Instead, Vincent Marino stood near the prep counter, his posture composed but no longer impersonal. His presence did not startle her this time, though her breath caught for a brief second out of instinct. He studied her carefully, the kind of study that did not evaluate performance but character. She looks better, he said quietly. Naomi nodded. She just needed reassurance. Fear can make simple things feel impossible. Vincent leaned slightly against the counter, the overhead light casting a soft glow across his features. The stern lines around his eyes had relaxed, replaced by something more contemplative. Most people would have walked past her, he said. Most people would have said it was not their problem. Naomi's gaze shifted downward, her voice gentle. Most people are dealing with their own storms, she replied. Sometimes that makes them forget how much it means to offer shelter, even for a moment. Her words hung in the air with a quiet gravity. Vincent found himself watching her hands, the way she folded them calmly, the steadiness in her fingers despite the long day behind her. It struck him that her strength did not come from loudness or authority, but from endurance, from empathy, from a kind of resilience that did not announce itself, yet filled the room. Naomi, Vincent said, his tone softer than she had ever heard from him. How long have you been staying late like this? She hesitated, not out of fear, but out of humility. A few months, she admitted. It started when I noticed some of the younger staff leaving upset or overwhelmed. I remembered what it felt like to be dismissed or ignored. I did not want them to face that alone. Vincent's brow lowered slightly, not in disapproval, but in a dawning understanding. He had hired managers, supervisors, and entire teams to keep the restaurant running smoothly, but none of them had offered what Naomi quietly gave without recognition or reward. "You do more than your job description," Vincent said. "Far more." Naomi offered a faint, almost shy smile. "Sometimes people just need a soft place to land," she said. "If I can be that for a moment, then the extra hours are worth it." Vincent felt something shift again, deeper this time, as though a truth he had long avoided had stepped into the light. For years he had believed loyalty was built on fear and order. Watching Naomi tonight, he saw another version of loyalty entirely, one shaped by compassion, quiet strength, and the ability to steady someone else's world even when her own was heavy. And for the first time, Vincent wondered if there was more to leadership than the power he had relied on for so long. The kitchen felt quieter now, as if the lingering hum of the refrigeration units had softened to make room for the conversation unfolding between Naomi Brooks and Vincent Marino. Outside the back door, the faint glow of passing headlights brushed across the tiled floor, signaling that the city was settling into its late-night rhythm. Naomi wiped her hands on her apron out of habit, though there was nothing left to clean. Her work was done, yet she remained still, aware of Vincent's gaze resting on her with a curiosity that felt different from authority. It held something closer to recognition, maybe even respect. Vincent glanced toward the hallway where Emily had waited moments earlier. "She trusted you almost instantly," he said. "That does not happen often in this place." Naomi breathed in slowly. "People sense when they are safe," she replied, "and when they are not. It is not about who is in charge. It is about who listens." Vincent let those words settle. He looked around his own kitchen, the immaculate counters, the polished equipment, the reminders of every expectation he had built into this place. Yet somehow, the thing that made the biggest difference tonight had nothing to do with training manuals or staff policies. It had been Naomi, kneeling on a cold floor, offering comfort with nothing more than presence and patience. "How long have you understood people this way?" he asked, his tone thoughtful rather than interrogative. Naomi hesitated, her eyes drifting toward the window where soft moonlight brushed the edge of the sill. "Since I was very young," she said. "Life taught me early that some people are carrying more than they can say out loud. My mother used to say that kindness is not a performance. It is a responsibility." A faint warmth touched her voice, a memory settling over her expression like gentle light. "She always told me that even on my hardest days, I still had something to give." Vincent watched her carefully. Her words did not come from pride or self-importance. They came from lived experience, shaped by loss, shaped by endurance. "Your mother sounds like a remarkable woman," he said quietly. Naomi nodded once, the small motion edged with both strength and ache. She was. Vincent could hear the weight of what remained unsaid, a story tucked behind her calm exterior, but he did not press. Instead, he stepped closer to the counter, close enough that Naomi could see the shift in his expression, the softening in the lines that usually spoke of discipline and distance. "Naomi," he said, "you have been doing more for this place than some people realize. More than I realized." Naomi looked at him, unsure how to respond. The sincerity in his voice felt unexpected, almost disarming. She offered a careful, modest smile. "I am just doing what feels right," she said. "People deserve care, even when the world moves too fast to notice them." Vincent exhaled slowly, the kind of breath that released something he had been holding for far too long. His eyes lingered on her, steady and contemplative. "You change the atmosphere when you are here," he said. "You make this place feel different." Naomi lowered her gaze, a quiet warmth touching her cheeks. "I do not know about that," she murmured. "I just try to make sure people walk away tonight with a little more hope than they came in with." Vincent considered her words, realizing they carried more truth than she intended. He had built his world with structure and authority, but Naomi brought something this place had been missing for years, a sense of humanity, subtle and grounding. For the first time that evening, he smiled, small but genuine. "Your ride will be here soon," he said. "But before you go, there is something I want to discuss with you. Something important." Naomi's eyes lifted in quiet curiosity, unaware that the moment ahead would begin to reveal why Vincent had watched her so closely, and why her presence mattered more than she could yet understand. Naomi Brooks held Vincent Marino's gaze, the quiet curiosity in her eyes meeting the steady weight of his. The kitchen had grown calmer, the last traces of the night's tension dissolving into the hum of the overhead lights. Somewhere outside, a car engine idled softly, likely the driver Vincent had promised, but neither of them moved toward the door. Vincent seemed to be choosing his words carefully, as if he understood that whatever he said next carried significance. "There is something I want to ask you," he began. His voice was controlled, but not cold. Instead, it carried a trace of sincerity that Naomi had not often heard from him. She folded her hands gently, waiting. "Tonight showed me something," he continued. "Something I have overlooked for too long." Naomi tilted her head slightly, unsure where his thoughts were leading. Vincent glanced toward the hallway again, the faintest shadow passing over his expression at the memory of Emily trembling alone. "I created this space," he said. "I hired managers, supervisors, head chefs. I built a structure that should have protected people." His eyes returned to Naomi. "But it did not. Not the way you did." Naomi's breath caught, though she kept her posture steady. She had never expected her quiet acts to reach anyone's notice, much less the man who ran everything from the top floor. "Sometimes structures miss the things that happen in between," she said softly. Vincent nodded slowly, as if her words confirmed something he had already begun to understand. "Exactly," he replied. "And that is why I want to make a change." Naomi felt a ripple of uncertainty, though her expression stayed calm. "What kind of change, sir?" Vincent stepped closer, just enough that his voice lowered in a thoughtful, grounded tone. "I want you to take on an additional role here," he said. "Not just as a housekeeper or an extra pair of hands. Something more meaningful." Naomi's brows lifted in surprise, but she did not interrupt. "You notice people," Vincent said. "You understand them in ways that most of my staff does not. You step in quietly, without being asked, and somehow you make things better. I need someone here who can do that intentionally, not by accident or generosity alone." Naomi felt the words settle into her chest, warm but heavy with responsibility. "You mean you want me to supervise?" she asked carefully. Vincent shook his head. "No," he said. "I do not need another supervisor. I need someone the staff trusts. Someone they turn to when things get difficult. Someone who can sense when something is wrong long before it becomes a problem." He paused. "I need you to be that person." Naomi stared at him, stunned by the sincerity in his tone. She had never thought of herself as someone who could hold such a role. She had always worked behind the scenes, making sure others found steady ground while she stood quietly in the background. "Why me?" she asked, barely above a whisper. Vincent met her eyes with a steadiness that left no room for doubt. "Because you are already doing the job," he said. "I am only giving it a name." Silence expanded gently between them, shaped not by discomfort, but by meaning. Naomi looked down at her hands, then back at him, her voice soft but clear. "I would want to help," she said, "if it truly makes things better for the others." Vincent gave a small nod, something like relief flickering across his features. "It will," he said, "and I will make sure you have what you need to do it." Naomi exhaled slowly, her heart steadying around the shape of a role she had never imagined for herself. And as Vincent watched her accept the weight of his request, he realized he had not simply offered her a position. He had acknowledged her influence, her presence, her quiet power to steady the very walls of the place he had built. For the first time in a long while, the kitchen felt full of something hopeful. Naomi Brooks stood very still, letting the weight of Vincent Marino's offer settle into her chest like a slow, steady breath. The kitchen felt different now, as if the walls themselves were listening. Somewhere outside, the night air rustled faintly against the metal door, but inside the room everything rested on the quiet space between them. Naomi folded her hands gently in front of her, grounding herself before she spoke. "I do not know if I am the right person," she admitted, her voice hushed but sincere. "I have never held a position like that." Vincent shook his head, the faintest hint of reassurance softening his features. "You have held it without a title," he replied. "People trust you. That is something no training manual can teach." Naomi lowered her gaze for a moment, absorbing the truth in his words. She had never tried to stand out. She had simply tried to help where help was needed. She looked back up, meeting his eyes with quiet resolve. "If I can support the staff and make things better for them, then I will try," she said. "But I will need guidance. And patience." Vincent's response came without hesitation. "You will have both." His voice carried no grand promise, no flourish, only steady commitment. It was more grounding than anything loud could have been. Naomi felt a warmth rise through her chest, not pride, but purpose. For years she had moved through workplaces like a shadow, present but unnoticed. Now, for the first time, someone had not only seen her, but believed in what she brought into a room. Vincent stepped back slightly, giving her space as he continued. I want you to observe the staff the way you naturally do, he said. If someone struggles, if something feels off, I want you to come to me directly. No barriers. No hesitation. Naomi blinked slowly. That level of trust from a man like Vincent was not small. Are you sure? She asked softly. Yes, he answered simply. I do not want what happened tonight to repeat. And I want to understand the things I've been blind to. Naomi held his gaze, the meaning of his words settling deeper. Vincent was not a man accustomed to admitting blind spots. The fact that he acknowledged one now revealed the shift happening inside him. A shift she had unknowingly begun. Before either could speak again, headlights swept across the kitchen floor, signaling that the car had pulled closer to the back door. Naomi glanced toward the glow, but did not move. Vincent followed her gaze, then looked back at her. Your ride is here, he said. Naomi nodded lightly. Thank you. She reached for her bag, but Vincent's voice stopped her. Naomi, he said. She paused, turning back to him. His expression was thoughtful, almost gentle. You made a difference tonight. Naomi's breath caught, her eyes softening with something unspoken. So did you, she replied. Vincent did not respond, but the quiet acknowledgement in his eyes said enough. Naomi walked toward the exit, her steps steady, her shoulders lifted with a new kind of purpose. When she opened the door, the night air greeted her with a cool embrace. She stepped outside, leaving Vincent alone in the dim kitchen. He watched the door ease shut behind her, the echo small but significant. In the stillness that followed, Vincent realized that the world he controlled so tightly had shifted, not because of force or authority, but because one quiet woman had chosen to stay after hours and offer kindness where no one else had bothered. And now, he understood why he could not look away. The ride home was quiet, the city sliding past the window in long streaks of light, as Naomi Brooks sat in the back seat of the sleek black sedan. She held her tote bag on her lap, fingers curled gently around the worn straps, grounding herself in the quiet after a night that felt heavier than most. The driver did not speak, respecting the silence, and Naomi appreciated that. She needed room to think. The offer Vincent Marino had made echoed in her mind, not loud but steady, like a soft drumbeat beneath the surface. A new role, a new responsibility, a recognition she had never expected. When the car reached her apartment building, Naomi stepped out into the cool air, offering the driver a polite thank you before watching the sedan roll slowly away. The street was calm, washed in the soft glow of scattered street lamps. She climbed the stairs to her small second-floor unit. Unlocking the door and stepping inside the space she had made her own over the years. It smelled faintly of lavender detergent and warm tea, familiar comforts that helped the day fall away. But tonight, Naomi did not rush to change clothes or prepare for bed. She set her bag down gently and sat on the edge of the couch, letting her shoulders relax. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to really feel what had happened. Someone had seen her, truly seen her, not as a helper, not as background, not as a pair of hands meant to stay quiet in the corner. Vincent had looked at her with a kind of clarity that told her he understood what she had been doing all along. And that realization brought a warmth she did not dare name. Meanwhile, back at the restaurant, Vincent remained in the kitchen long after Naomi had left. The stainless steel counters gleamed under the dimmed lights, and the faint scent of citrus cleaner lingered in the air. He walked slowly across the polished floor, replaying the moments of the evening in his mind. Naomi kneeling beside Emily. Naomi speaking with calm conviction. Naomi standing before him with a steadiness that made the room feel anchored. He rested one hand on the prep table, his gaze fixed on the spot where she had stood. For years, he had built his world around certainty, around control, around the belief that leadership required distance. But Naomi had shifted something in him without trying, simply by being who she was. He found himself wondering about her as a person, not just an employee. What had shaped her? What had given her such strength? What storms she had walked through that had taught her how to hold others steady? He respected her before he even realized it. And now, Standing alone in the quiet kitchen, he felt that respect deepen into something he could not quite define. The next morning, Naomi woke before dawn, as she always did. Sunlight had not yet touched the blinds, but her mind was already awake, nudged by the weight and promise of the conversation from the night before. She brewed a small pot of tea, letting the steam warm her hands as she stood by the kitchen window. Outside, the sky was a muted blue, still deciding how bright it wanted to be. Naomi sipped her tea, her thoughts drifting to the new role Vincent had offered. She did not know where this path would lead, but she knew one thing for certain. She would give it everything she had, not for recognition, not for status, but because kindness mattered. People mattered. And somewhere across the city, in a kitchen that had never known gentleness until recently, Vincent Marino stood with the first morning light touching the edge of his office window, thinking of the woman who had changed the rhythm of his night. And he knew this was only the beginning. The morning unfolded with a quiet steadiness as Naomi Brooks prepared for her day, the soft sound of her kettle clicking off in her small apartment, signaling the start of something unfamiliar and significant. She dressed with care, not out of vanity, but out of respect for the responsibility that had been entrusted to her. When she stepped outside, the early sunlight brushed gently across her skin, warmer than she expected for the hour. As she walked toward the bus stop, she noticed something unusual. A black sedan waited at the curb, the same one from the night before. The driver stepped out immediately when he saw her. "Ms. Brooks," he said respectfully, "Mr. Marino asked that I bring you in today." Naomi blinked, surprised but composed. She nodded, thanked him, and settled into the back seat as the city began to wake around them. At the restaurant, staff members were already beginning their morning routines. The scent of fresh coffee drifted through the air, and the soft clatter of pans could be heard behind the kitchen doors. Yet something felt different. Conversations quieted slightly when Naomi walked in, not out of discomfort but curiosity. They noticed her presence, recognized the calm authority she carried without trying. Emily Ward was among them, her face brightening as soon as she saw Naomi. She hurried over, her voice gentle but full of gratitude. "I have been thinking about last night," Emily said. "Thank you again. Really." Naomi squeezed her hand lightly. "You did everything right," she reassured. "And today is a fresh start." Vincent appeared in the doorway then, his presence unmistakable even in stillness. He approached with a composed expression, but his eyes held a warmth that had not been there days before. "Naomi," he said, "come with me." She followed him to his office, a room she had only glimpsed in passing before. Morning light streamed through the large window, casting a soft glow across the polished surfaces. Vincent gestured for her to sit, and for a moment he simply observed her, as if making sure the decision he had made still felt right. "I spoke with the management team this morning," he said. "They will be informed of your new role, and you will have the freedom to work directly with me." Naomi nodded slowly, absorbing the words. She felt the significance of the moment, but she remained grounded. "Thank you for trusting me," she said softly. Vincent let out a slow breath, the kind that released tension he had been carrying for years. "It is not trust blindly given," he replied. "It is trust earned." Naomi's heart stilled for a moment, touched by the sincerity in his voice. He continued, "I want you to tell me your observations. If someone is struggling, if something feels wrong, you let me know immediately. No chain of command. No hesitation." Naomi understood the weight of what he was giving her. It was not just authority. It was belief. She met his eyes, her voice steady. "I will do my best to honor this responsibility." Vincent nodded. "You already have." Silence settled comfortably between them, not heavy but meaningful. In that stillness, Vincent realized he had never invited someone into his inner circle because of character rather than strategy. Naomi had earned her place through compassion, resilience, and a quiet power that seemed to steady the very room. When she rose to leave, Vincent stood as well, an unspoken gesture of respect. As she stepped out into the hallway, the restaurant seemed to shift around her. Staff members greeted her with newfound recognition, sensing the change even if they did not yet know the details. Naomi walked with calm purpose, the echo of her footsteps carrying more weight than the thin soles of her shoes suggested. And behind the office door, Vincent remained standing for a long moment, watching the space she had just left. He understood now, with quiet certainty, that the reason she stayed after hours had never been about work. It had been about people, about courage, about seeing what others overlooked. And in that realization, the world he governed felt a little less cold, shaped by the presence of one woman who carried kindness in her very breath.